In my last video, I decided to express my opinions on the current state of Project Zomboid by just reading some bad reviews for the game, while hoping to spark a little discussion on the topic. But I definitely was not expecting to get nearly 40,000 views on this video, and what surprised me even more were the comments. I mean, you guys just absolutely poured your hearts out in this comment section. Like, every single comment is just a novel, and people are writing their whole life stories and experiences on Project Zomboid over the years, and it's just genuinely an amazing thing to see. A lot of you guys were agreeing with me, but there was also a large chunk who disagreed with me. So today I thought it'd be a good idea to go over some of these comments and see what you guys had to say. So let's go. So let's start off with probably one of my favorite comments on the video. 2K Hour Zomboid fan here. Bottom of 41 was hope, joy, and lots of gaming. 42 comes around. Basements and lights, yes! But many problems arise, and my favorite mods are missing. So overall, a lot of mods don't work, but now I've tasted basements and lighting and performance. I don't feel like going back to build 41, but I don't feel like playing 42. Britta's weapons was so awesome, now it's totally gone. Probably the only mod I cannot live without. High-tech military custom weapon mods blow chunks right now. Map mods aren't ready, and they hired the guy who made my favorite map, Pit Stop, so now he writes code so we can just bake clay and smith morning stars, which I never freaking asked for to begin with. Arg. Development is way too slow. This is ridiculous. Yeah, this is a great comment right here. This part right here about tasting the basements and lighting and not wanting to go back, but still not wanting to play 42 because of all the problems is right on the money for how I feel about this game right now. So thank you for that comment. This one actually appears to be the most liked comment on the video. You cannot set cars on fire, you cannot make pancakes from milk, flour, and eggs, and it takes over an hour to make a stir fry or cook a patty. It needs a lot of work if they are going for realism. Exactly, dude. I can see why this is the top comment for sure. Now, this comment actually brings up a really good point, which I've seen repeated across other comments, so let's see what it has to say. Before watching, I just gotta get this off my chest. If it takes you several hundred or even over 1,000 hours to realize you don't like the game, you actually love the game and are just finally tired of it. I think you should give it a recommend, unless the game has recently had changes that render it unenjoyable to play. And this is a good point. The idea that if someone has played the game for all those hours and now they say they don't like it, typically that does mean that they enjoyed it in the past, because why would you put yourself through thousands of hours of something you don't like? But I mean, for Project Zomboid, it is kind of a different situation, because you all know that those 1,000 hours were not spent during just this past year and a half or whatever that Build 42 has been out. Like, those thousands of hours were definitely played throughout the course of this game's development, where it felt like a completely different game in the past, and only now they're leaving the negative reviews because exactly what this guy's saying, it's become unenjoyable to them, and it's just something that these people are passionate about, clearly, so they have to leave their opinion. So that's just what I think about that whole situation. Now, this is one of the ones that actually disagreed with me, so let's see what they have to say. Gotta disagree a lot. For a start, there is only around 5% of the players that have left bad reviews, and some of them are meme reviews, so by that logic, many more positive reviews give good details about what is good in the game and what is not so great. It being an early access does not take away from what it already does, and to be honest, it delivers a lot more for the people who are into this genre than a lot of AAAs give you. Also, they had some major setbacks with all of their code being stolen and such. But for the price it is, the amount of updates and the love it gets from the team still, and the amount of replayability and choices, it's great value for the money. And if you say it's not as replayable as I say, then the same goes for Baldur's Gate 3, Skyrim, Fallout. You still follow the same formula, but just go down different routes. In Build 42 at first, if you played it, then the muscle fatigue was a bit overpowered, but it has been fixed over time, and your muscle fatigue also improves over time while using the weapon as you learn. Also this with the random zombie sense and sprinters. There is sandbox mode where you can turn them off or tone it down. Also, Build 41 has way more mods for it than Build 42 even today. Also, gotta disagree with them saying a snail's pace. This game gets updates quite regularly, fixing bugs, changing features to work better, and adding new features. It has a way better update cycle than most games. But the main part I can see is updating saves. I have not had a conversion break my save file once, but I know it can. This is why you always have to back up your save, and if it doesn't work and you want to keep playing, then stay on the version you like. Also, mods do work on multiplayer. You can make a dedicated server and it runs just fine. Yeah, that is one mistake that I made in the video. I didn't realize because I haven't tried it in a while, so I guess multiplayer does have mods now, I just hadn't tried it recently. But the main reasons I think such a massive change was made in Build 42 were because they are looking towards NPCs in Build 43. But the framework they are using is animals updating off screen, and if they can get it right, then NPCs are a good possibility. But then having them be too populous would break the whole immersion of survival or being alone infested with zombies. So they have to get that balance right, which is what the unstable builds are for. But the crafting system is great for people who already love survival games and the in-depth crafting systems. Since, let's be honest, Build 41 was simple and kind of easy when you got past a certain point in the game with not much to do aside from loot new things in the end. Build 42 gives you options to do that at the end, like animal, rearing, or smithing, aside from looting and killing everything. Sure, Project Zomboid does have some downsides, like being in Build 42 Unstable, you do not have as many mods or options that are locked like sprinters in online. But that is why the game gives you Build 41 as the public build and the Unstable is opt-in. If you don't like it, sandbox the hell out of it. If you still don't like it, play with the stable version. Yeah, this guy has some pretty good points. I do agree with a lot of what he's saying. It is true that they fixed muscle fatigue over time and it's not that big of a deal, and that's not really one of my main problems with the game. This is a very fair point, so thank you for your comment. Here's another one that actually disagrees with the negative reviews. Negative reviews on the game based solely on Build 42 are stupid. It isn't the current stable version of the game, it's completely in test, and when you opt into it, you're doing so with a warning and full knowledge that things will not work properly, are incomplete, and that saves may break. Literally, the only thing that any reasonable person should be frustrated with for Zomboid right now is the dev length and wait for the finished product. But if you're playing a game for over 1,000 hours that costs less than half the price of a AAA game, you shouldn't be leaving it a negative review. Build 41 was massive for Project Zomboid, and the player numbers exploded because it was like a free expansion. 42 will be exactly the same. You're getting a metric boatload of new content for a game you've already played to death, and people are still going to shit on it because they're impatient and mods aren't working. Crazy. If you're playing Build 42 and get frustrated, just put the game away for a few months, play something else, and wait for the stable launch. Yeah, this guy actually does have some pretty good points, like the fact that when you're opting into the Build 42 Unstable, which is completely optional, you do get full warning that it will be buggy and there's gonna be saves breaking and all this stuff. But my perspective on it is like, imagine waiting during the course of Build 41 like 3+ years for Build 42, and you see throughout all that time like the teasers of the features being posted and it's like super hype and you're waiting for it, and then it finally comes out and you can finally play it and it's just full of bugs and it's unplayable. I mean, I guess you should expect that, but that's just why a lot of people, including myself, are disappointed kind of, or at least were when it first came out. Here's one that's actually bringing up a similar point that we were just talking about in the last one. Regarding 250, about the crashing saves, that's why it's called Unstable version. The fact that the devs are showing you a sneak, I think they meant sneak peek there, should have gratitude, not complaining. If things happen in version that were released as stable, then I'd understand the complaint. But Unstable is called Unstable for a reason. It's a beta. But overall, I feel the game has so much heart and love from everyone that hardcore complaints are bound to come out. If no one cared about it, then there would be less complaints. I think the people saying there is a lack of updates are sorta wrong. Yeah, maybe not a lot of game-changing updates, but the devs work stupid hard to fix all the bugs. That is very true, and probably a lot of people are hoping and expecting for game-changing updates, but they're just working on getting the current branch fully stable. You're not going to get Build 43 yet. Build 42 was a buggy mess when it started. Couldn't even play it. Eventually it polished out. Update after update of bug fixes and some new additions here and there. Now yeah, I have played less Zomboid, but I'm sure it's just burnout on my end. Also same, maybe it's a personal problem for me, I don't know. All these comments have different views of the game, lol. Some of them want an arcadey easier game with meta builds. Some wanted a more realistic game because the gameplay loop was too easy, lol. In my opinion, Project Zomboid isn't like a typical zombie survival game like DayZ, nor an arcadey zombie game with metas like Resident Evil. Think of Project Zomboid as something like The Sims with zombies and violence, lol. But yeah, the only thing I agree with all these guys are NPCs. Most of the mods I've been using revolve around economy, which is hard to make for a single player experience, so there's only a few of them. The game, however, sort of makes you learn Lua and Java programming if you want to tweak it to the experience you've wanted. Yeah, this is true. I do feel like a lot of the player base expects different things or wants different things out of the game. Like, it is very apparent that there's the hardcore players and then there's the just kind of hack and slash zombie killing guys. And it's true. I think that's part of why the community might be so divided. Here's another common complaint that I've actually seen from multiple people, and I think it's pretty fair to make. My issue is that they aren't actually doing anything good. No extra weapons and guns, which would be extremely easy to add. No actual vehicles, like you have to mod this game. It's amazing without them, but once you really get to the core of Zomboid, you need a little salt and pepper. Multiplayer also just doesn't really have a thing. No big servers open play, but who knows, man. Devs keep updating here and there, it might get there eventually. I mean, look at 7 Days to Die, it was in alpha for like 15 years. This one basically sums up how it feels to be in the mod apocalypse that this game currently is going through. I can't play the game anymore. I've got required mods, e.g. Bandits plus 1 week before, made for version 42.35.02, version 42.35.03, and version 42.36.01, which are incompatible with either versions. What the hell did they change between 42.34.09, 42.35.02, and 42.35.03? I have cooking mods for 42.35.01 that break my game if I don't use required mods that haven't been updated since 42.34.05 and don't work with the latest 42.36.08 build. The modding community is all over the place, and it's not their fault. The game is now rapidly being updated, and every update breaks all the mods for the update before it. Here's one that seemed to agree with the whole realism point that people have been making. Using realism to defend the never-ending increases in artificial difficulty and the nerfing of anything that gave us joy is kind of missing the mark. Water falling from the sky already poisoned isn't realistic. Stripping down structures and not learning anything, getting no XP, isn't realistic. Being locked out of super basic builds because of level requirements isn't realistic. It's artificial difficulty, and there are tons of examples. The difficulty is purely to throw a wrench in the wheels of people with thousands of hours who have turned the game into a trivial stroll through the park. There is no endgame, there is no story, which people are sick of waiting for, so the dev's solution is to just keep cranking the difficulty up so people stop breezing through the game, which only kills the game's accessibility and sucks the fun out of it, more and more every single patch. Personally, Build 42 is killing the game, to be honest. Mostly the new crafting mechanics, zombie spawns, and how they changed aiming mechanics and nerfed melee combat. Much of the changes in Build 42 feel like they were trying to make popular Build 41 mods and cram them into the base game. Issue with that is, not everyone likes those mods. For example, I much prefer the Build 41 aiming system with guns over what they introduced in Build 42. I liked the more RPG aiming mechanics of Build 41, not the Alien, Swarm, or Helldiver 1 style aiming mechanics added in Build 42. Modders already added that kind of aiming system into Build 41, so the devs, in my opinion, completely wasted their time adding it into the base game for Build 42, instead of allowing it to be a modded option that people would have ported into Build 42 anyways from Build 41. Sadly, I can say a lot of the changes in Build 42, you can argue, are the same scenario. Many of them, including advanced crafting, had already existed as mods. But again, like the aiming system, not everyone cared for those mods. But now the devs forced it onto players when modders would have just ported those mods to build 42 from build 41. Again, the devs are wasting their time on something they don't need to be doing while forcing what it would have been mods in build 41 onto players who didn't want those mechanics in the game. I think you can see what I'm getting at. There is a reason I've just kept going back to build 41 after testing new build 42 updates. Build 41 is honestly a better sandbox experience. Build 42 adds way too many niche changes that please specific niche players but only upset other players. Build 41 is honestly a truer customizable experience currently. The fact that you often have to download mods for Build 42 to revert Build 42 changes to enjoy Build 42 is a serious problem in my book. This guy has a pretty good point once again, and the more I read these comments about how Build 41 is just, it's still there and it's still good, it's kind of making me think like, why don't I just do that? If I want to play Project Zomboid again, why don't I just forget about Build 42, put all that out of my mind, and just go back to Build 41? Maybe I'd enjoy it more. But there is the problem of like, some mods don't exist anymore. I think it might be worth a shot. Many changes that were made in Build 42 can just be fixed with world setting changes or mods. Like random zombie hearing and muscle fatigue are entirely just world settings. Same with the extremely slower crop growth, which maybe wasn't covered in any of the reviews, but it's a big change in Build 42. However, currently, Build 42 is in a bad state because it's full of a lack of polish, small bugs, and an awkward UI that was made even worse going from Build 41 to Build 42. And while it's supplementary content that doesn't really matter, they added a whole bunch of nearly useless crafting skills and just bloated the skill screen with more skills, many of which take a lot to grind. What's more is, we learned that the expanded crafting system, which we don't really know exactly what that entails, was delayed until Build 43, which is likely to be at least a year or two away, if you count the unstable launch, but potentially many more years like Build 42 was. They made so many side steps rather than forward steps, and it will take a lot more time to get into a good position. They are still making overall progress, it's just slow and might need to let back on some of the changes they made. The biggest threat is that there's multiple good quality games that are directly competing with Zomboid, and have much better framework to zoom past Project Zomboid's development despite the fact that they may be slightly behind with Project Zomboid currently. I imagine most people aren't going to be playing all of those games, so it would be easier to just choose the better game or the one with more potential for the future. I'm definitely a huge fan of Zomboid with many thousands of hours of Build 41 play, but I'm concerned a bit about its future. I do have faith that they can get to good points, but I think it will just continue to take a long time, potentially to an unsustainable degree. It's not like this game is a live service game. They need to continue to make sales in order to keep funding their development. They did get a ton of revenue from Build 41 multiplayer though, so it should last them quite a while. Here's a good comment discussing NPCs, which a lot of you either care about or do not care about depending on the type of player you are. Honestly, I've put 2,608.8 hours into this game. I started playing back in Build 30 in December 2014. Hey, me too, dude. Yes, that long ago when erosion was first introduced. After all this time, I can wholeheartedly say that what we really need now are dynamic NPCs. I don't fully understand why NPC development has taken so long. The modding community has already shown what's possible with projects like Bandit's NPC mod and Nox Event Expanded. If modders can create functioning NPC systems, it makes me wonder why it's been such a prolonged process for the developers. Now, this is actually an interesting thing that I've thought about too, but I guess I have to say, like, when I've played these mods with NPCs in them, such as the Bandits one or the Week 1 mod even, NPCs are kind of weird and glitchy, and they kind of have strange behaviors, so I feel like the devs of Project Zomboid would probably want to make a different approach to it than these mods do, and I could see why it might be kind of a difficult thing to flesh out, so yeah. Why not focus on implementing the core NPC framework first and then build and iterate on it over time? Instead, it feels like we've been waiting and waiting, and that kind of delay risks the community losing momentum. Don't get me wrong, I genuinely love this game, and my playtime clearly shows that, but once you've built out your base and maxed your character's stats, the world can start to feel empty. Dynamic NPCs would add the depth, unpredictability, and late game engagement that many longtime players have been hoping for. This is actually something that I've said about the game a lot, specifically the part where once you've built out your base and maxed your character's stats, there's practically nothing to do. I mean, like, when you're the kind of player who can just easily get by and not die so often, and you've set up your base and everything, what are you gonna do, really? Alright, now we're going to end on a really good comment that sums up pretty much this entire video before moving on to what the developers themselves actually have to say about this whole situation, because they did just post about what we're talking about here. Bad reviews of Project Zomboid tend to be quite similar to good reviews of Project Zomboid. Yeah, the more I read these comments, the more I realize this very thing. Alright now, so yeah, I thought it was actually quite interesting that while I was making this video, the Project Zomboid devs themselves posted a Thursdoid basically detailing exactly what we've been talking about in my previous video and all these comments. But I mean, first and foremost, it's mostly about introducing their new design director here, which seems pretty cool, but what I'm getting at is this part here. I recognize that the community is unhappy with the length of development for Build 42 Unstable, and are eager for it to move into stable so they can play long-term runs in multiplayer and single-player without fear of a save no longer working, mods being disrupted, or having to reboot servers. Conversely, I also know that players want certain features implemented or some systems changed, updated, expanded, or fixed, and I understand that players should have several out-of-the-box polished and balanced gameplay experiences while maintaining PZ's unique tradition of allowing players to highly customize most aspects of the game as they choose. All of these elements are a balancing act, and as you may have noticed, making a game this complex is not a simple challenge. Everything is generally a balance between time, quality, and depth, and oftentimes developers are making a call to try to anticipate the best possible outcome for the player with the lowest risk of breaking other features or going down a massive time sink of implementation. Build 42 Unstable launched with an extremely ambitious set of feature goals, and as those features came into contact with the community, some went well, others needed a lot more work than anticipated, and some needed major changes based on player feedback. Some new features will not end up being as fleshed out as hoped in Build 42, but build a foundation for future development and modding. Some will necessarily be pushed to future development, and some will be streamlined based on the extensive playtesting and feedback over the past year. And of course, as we saw recently with 42.14.1, a lot of the coders are currently focused in the short term on multiplayer bug stopping, but the ongoing balance and quality of life polish is intended to benefit both single player and multiplayer players. I also recognize that many in the community feel that the communication has dropped off. While we often hope that update notes can speak for themselves, without context that can lead to confusion for the community. Is this a fix, the final change, or the foundational work for future expansion? While I don't want to commit to a specific posting schedule, I do want to work to provide some more of that context of where things are and where they're heading. Like me, I know that the other new-ish directors are excited to share their philosophy as well, so we'll be exploring different ways to share with the community beyond blog posts and massive lists of update notes. We are in the final charge of Build 42 Unstable, which means there are still a lot of bug fixes, game balancing, polish, and a bunch of new content that is in our internal pipeline awaiting final implementation and testing. But the team is working hard to barricade the windows and shore up the food supplies. Moving out of Unstable doesn't mean that there will not be continued support, refactoring, modding improvements, and balance for Build 42 in the future, just in a stable environment. I and the other directors, as well as many of the team, are actively seeing your discussions, both big and small, while also playing the game and experiencing many of the same blockers and frustrations as you, and working to prioritize those into our production schedule. Your feedback through the Unstable process is essential and valued, and has driven adjustments and prioritization, serving as our cat's eyes as we prep for the launch of Build 42 Stable to the broader shambling masses, so keep it up. Yeah, see, it's pretty interesting that during the course of my last video being out, they posted this. This paragraph here, I can't help but feel like is almost directly referencing that video and all the discussions you guys have been having, but like obviously, who knows, right? But still, like, this is such a crazy coincidence and honestly perfect timing for this video, because the devs adding their input to this discussion is pretty important. And what they had to say was pretty reassuring and actually quite nice to hear, and I'm glad they did it. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is earlier on in the blog, they were actually talking about the realism of the game and how they're trying to fix it and balance it out to make everything more cohesive. And that's something that a lot of players are actually complaining about, so let's read what they have to say about that. One topic I wanted to hit on in this introduction is the term realism. I know, yes, I've seen the memes about it, and the phrase realism only if it makes it harder for the player, or that the Indie Stone uses realism as an excuse. One of my first expectations I set internally is that while realism obviously informs decisions, it isn't the final deciding factor when looking at player experience. I've learned with my background in tactical shooters that realism as a foundation, 1, isn't a real standard since we are talking about video games here, and 2, realism is a setting, not a vision. My focus isn't on realism, it's on authenticity, consistency, and verisimilitude within the setting of the realistic world of 1993 Knox County overrun with the undead. Sometimes realism is a good guideline, such as increasing the number of firearms existing in 1993 Kentucky, or ensuring the propane tank design is American, not European. But we also don't want to add realism for realism's sake when it's just a pain in the butt. For example, your generator pull cord randomly breaking would be realistic, mine has a few times, but doesn't add much to the fun. This may seem like minor wordplay, but it's an important foundation to set. Moving forward, one of my big priorities will be consistency across both the game world and how the player interacts with it. There are a lot of very rewarding and complex game systems in PZ, but many of those systems were developed by different people and at different times, and this has led to disparate presentations which creates frustrations for the players. This will be a long-term process focusing on unifying systems, UI, terminology, and more, always keeping in mind that Project Zomboid is a game about experiencing the story of how you died. It is also interesting to note that from what it sounds like here, them being in the final charge of Build 42 Unstable, maybe the stable version won't be like 3 years like we thought. Maybe it's coming a little sooner, but I'm not going to get my hopes up at all, and neither should you guys, But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and especially thank you to all those people who commented on that last video. The discussions in there was an amazing thing to see, and starting discussions like this is really what I set out to do when I made my YouTube channel, so I'm just so happy to see that, and I will always encourage further discussions on things that I'm passionate about, like this game. And be sure to let me know what you guys think about what the devs had to say in response to this whole situation. I can't help feeling a little called out, but I personally find it kind of reassuring to know that they are actively viewing our discussions and are taking notes. So yeah. And after all this, I think you guys may have slightly shifted my view on Project Zomboid and convinced me that it might be worth another shot, especially since Build 42 is getting more and more stable all the time, and there's always that option of, going back to Build 41, forgetting all this new stuff, and just playing with your mods again and having a good time. So yeah, thanks again, and I'll see you all in the next one.